Hey everybody, for the Christmas market in Toronto, Canada, this is going to be the last video blog, last content that we do for 2016 here on the website. So it was 7 years ago today I met somebody who had a profound impact on my life. I was in a really bad spot professionally and personally, and I just felt awful, and I decided I wanted to get away from everybody, and I was going to take a train all the way across Canada and back, something I'd always wanted to do. So I get on the train, and a few days into the trip, I get on the bar car. And there's this woman there I strike up a conversation with. It turns out her name is Kaylee. And I ask her, like, okay, so why are you on the train? And she kind of looks a little sheepish and she goes, well, I'm actually going to Vancouver to meet a guy. And I was like, oh, your boyfriend lives in Vancouver. And she kind of like looks away and goes, well, not exactly. We've never actually met in person. And I was like, what do you mean? She goes, well, 2 years ago we met on the internet and we completely fell in love. And neither one of us expected it. But the problem is we're both students. We both work to pay for school and have to study. We don't have any money, and we're both terrified of flying. So the only way we'd ever actually get to meet each other in person is if one of us drove or took the train all the way across Canada, and we never had the time or the money to do it until now. And she goes, look, I know we met on the internet, and this is before everybody met on the internet, and she goes, and all my friends think I'm crazy. But she said, look, I want a love story, Drew. And I don't know if everyone's entitled to one, but I want one. And I will go as far as I have to chase one. And then she looks at me and says, Drew, how far are you willing to go for the chance to be happier? And that's one of those questions that when you first hear it, you think, okay, that's a good question. But then it like sticks in your head. And like I'm sitting there sleeping that night on the train, watching the world go by, and this question just keeps rolling through my head. How far are you willing to go for the chance to be happier? And what was weird is I realized, it was a hard realization, is that I wasn't willing to go very far. Because I wasn't very happy where I was. I was unhappy. I got physically ill every day before I went to work. And yet, you know, to reiterate that phrase that a good friend of mine once told me, the three most addictive things on the planet are crack, carbohydrates, and a salary. And I wouldn't leave my job. I had everything I was supposed to want to be happy. I had a good job that paid me money. I had a nice house. I had a cool car. I had a job at a prestigious institution. And I was supposed to be happy with those things. And I wasn't. And I thought there was something wrong with me because I wasn't happy with the things I was supposed to be happy with. And I wasn't willing to risk any of them for the chance to be happier. And I think the reason I didn't do it is the reason that any of us doesn't do anything. I was afraid that what I would end up with would be worse than what I had at the time. But then I realized something. I didn't even like what I had. What I had was okay. And I wasn't willing to risk okay for the chance to be happier. And I don't know the secret to happiness. I've said this before. I don't know the secret to happiness, but I know one of the keys to unhappiness is when how you conceive of yourself and how you are behaving, what a gap forms between those two things. And you become aware of that gap. And I realized at that moment I'd never seen myself as someone who was willing to settle for okay. And yet clearly I was choosing to settle for okay. And so as we head into 2017, and look, I think every day is day one. You don't have to wait for New Year's to decide that it's time to reflect on your life and change something. But I will say this. One of the things I want you to ask yourself, a couple of questions that I want you to ask yourself as we head into 2017 is this. How far are you willing to go for the chance to be happier? And if right now you just feel like you're okay, but you're not willing to risk okay for the chance to be happier, well, then you got to take a step and you got to change something, okay? Because honestly, how far are you willing to go for the chance to be happier? But this, ask yourself this as you head into 2017. Where in my life am I settling? All right, am I settling in my relationships? Am I settling in my personal health? Am I settling in my career? Am I settling in anything? Ask yourself, where in my life am I settling? Because here's the thing, I don't care how old you are. You are too young to settle. And bear that in mind as you head into this 2017 new year. My friends, thank you so much for the support in the first 6 months. We'll be back in 2017 with some amazing new things for you. I'm Drew Dudley with the Day One Video Blog.